What does GILF stand for? Grannies, I'd like to... Yeah, because New Zealand has a brand new national obsession to go with rugby, racing and beer. You're all suddenly interested and obsessed with granny flats. You're all wondering the same things. Can I build one? Can I rent one? Can I just call it a minor dwelling? Plus, we've got some questions about karakias in the Resource Management Act. Even building a fence now requires a spiritual clearance. So we're answering your questions again with two men with all the answers. Andrew Malcolm, a man so jacked we live in the shadow of his biceps. A man who's flipped more homes than pancakes, Dave Whitburn. And if things go off the rails, Dave might even sing us a waiata.
Financial freedom faster. Financial freedom faster.
Would you like me to do a karakia, Craig?
I don't want to be seen to be culturally inappropriate, so if you really want to.
I think it'd be appropriate to take 30 seconds for this. Māori to Māori ora tēnā te mara.
3 hours later.
The wana koto.
But see, this is the point. This is exactly what Morris Williamson was going on about. This clown doesn't speak Maori.
I have no idea what you're saying.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Okay,
and this is the point that he was making in the podcast, that this kind of stuff holds things up.
I don't think there should be a prayer in Parliament.
Okay, but no, well, I do.
Right,
because
But you grew up Catholic. I grew up with nothing.
No, but it's not so much that. Maori is one of the official languages of New Zealand.
So is English, but why do we need to do a prayer?
Why not?
yeah.
But why?
The
The question is not why not. The question is why.
No, like
it's to acknowledge tangata whenua and their rights to do it, but it's
I identify as Jedi. So shall we do a Star Wars freaking mantra? We talk about the Force before we open Parliament, before we open up.
Well, you're talking my language, to be honest. There's lots of Star Wars stuff around here, but I don't have an issue with that.
with identifying as Jedi.
Well, no, I certainly know. I am a Jedi.
Okay. All right,
I was called a Jedi Master of Bullshit on one radio station, but anyhow.
Maridika.
It was.
He was your mentor in the bus.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't taking the piss. He can. You can speak Maori.
To a slow level, and I've got a diploma from Te Wānanga Aotearoa to level 6.
So we're not taking the piss in him, what we just did. He legitimately can speak Maori.
No, I attend Māori Anglican Jutsu.
Okay, what did you actually say?
I was embracing the life force within.
Okay. And I think the point that Morris Williamson was trying to say was, is this necessary? And under the Resource Management, it certainly wasn't necessary in the podcast.
This was not necessary. I 100% agree.
But this is what
this is exactly the point that Morris is trying to say.
Okay. Is it necessary to open a building? It's an acknowledgement of trying to do things the right way. But in terms of building a fence, is it appropriate to do it? Okay, probably not. No, if it's your practice, your tikanga, the way that you do things, then that's appropriate for you to do it. But do you need another group to do it for you? Probably not. But can I just put up there, it's in Section 8 of the Resource Management Act 1991 to, I guess, comply with the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi.
So the national government put it through. Yeah, 1991, the national government put it through.
In fact, the draft bills were passed under the
fact, it was under
government.
Morris Williamson's government.
Yes.
Yes, it was. So that's the next question we've got to ask him. What is he?
Ask that.
We'd absolutely ask him. Should call him now. Like, it was his bloody government.
Yeah.
After all that whining that he did.
Okay. Yeah. Council and government and industry regulation bodies in general should be trying to get shit done. And if we're stopping every day in this place, in my office, to send karakia, we're not going to get shit done. And what people, everyday people that don't own businesses or don't own bigger businesses don't realize is the 5 or 10% where you do more is where 80% of the profit is. And if council or government stopped fucking around with all the stuff that's not important or doesn't contribute to productivity or returns to taxpayers or whatever, they would be able to do that 10% more. And that's where they would get 80% of the benefit of over and above of what they're doing. Because what they're doing right now doesn't really do much for your everyday taxpayer or citizen. What they need to do is do more. Councils fucking around with bus stops and getting in the way of building things.
Crossings, road
crossings and road cones and shit like that. that is what's fucking up productivity and kind of average standard of living for Kiwis.
They're well intentioned, but they kind of get in the way, local government and central government, because they put in so many rules and regulations, and it
And
actually
middle
gets a bit
managers.
painful. But it's
Yeah.
the middle managers there.
And then what happens is you need somebody to be in charge of the committee that comes in to sing the karakia. And then you're adding layers. And so I don't really have a problem with the karakia. Do one at the start of the year, do one at the end of the year, get everybody blessed and mean it, and that's fine. And in between all of that, get shit done.
Let's start with a couple of questions. First one, many of the advice given, this is for you, Dave, many of the advice given was factually inaccurate. Recommend doing your research rather than believing what's said here. So we'll start off the bat, a hater.
That's fine. There are always a few haters, and that's one of the beauties of the internet, YouTube, and social media. We're not trying to give incorrect advice. We're merely reporting what the news is. This was an announcement. It was fresh when we did it. Minister Chris Pink, such a hard worker, had stated what we were doing. We never trying to hide anything. The reality is you need a PIM, a Project Information Memorandum, every single time to do this. So,
Okay, question for you is actually about the housing story that we do on Monday. 5% growth year ride is going to drop another 10% or at least, so real positive. At least, that's my opinion based on decades of watching. But hey, I don't make my money from selling mortgages.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism towards mortgage advisors and bankers. Remiss if I didn't say that we don't really sell mortgages. We help people navigate their life's challenges of buying property. And that's what the bank is there to do, provide money when you want to borrow it. And mortgage advisors are there to help you avoid making mistakes.
I'm going to keep on going with questions, all right? I'm a builder with over 40 years in the industry. There's a long list of fish hooks in this. The guy in the check shirt is talking crap. You.
that might have been my previous check shirt.
Yeah, you've got another one on today.
Got another one.
You won't believe how often he comes in here. He's worth millions. You're wearing Calvin Klein today, but
Yep, second.
you look like Al Borland from Home Improvement last
And what a handsome guy Al is.
Well,
Thank you for that compliment, Craig. I appreciate that.
yeah, but at least are you talking crap with some of this stuff? Like,
I'm
look, it says here, you'll still need all the compliance paperwork bar the consent. How's that going to save a fortune?
sure. The reality is we need to get a PIN, that project information memorandum at the start. So councils are still going to charge you their financial contributions, also known as development contributions, in different council or territorial authority areas. And once you've finished the building, you're still going to have to provide the plans. That's your building and your plumbing and drainage schematics. So councils will still know about it. We've always said that, though, with that in the bill, that it's not going to be the holy grail. It's not going to mean that you can do absolutely anything anywhere. There are restrictions. 70 square metres is the maximum size that you can do without having council issuing you a building consent and a code compliance certificate. There's a 1 metre maximum above the ground level that you can have in any portion of the building. And from the finished floor level, or FFL, to jump ahead on another question, Craig, it's a maximum of 4 metres height above that as well. There can't be more than
Okay, so I'll stop you there. This is from Jesse John, someone or other, Tui Manu.
Hey,
My-
John Tuimanu.
My architect was telling me it's a joke. No earthworks, otherwise you need a consent. I thought FFL meant fuck my life, but it's not. It's
That would be FML. I think it's a bit rude, but the FFL is the finished floor level, and that's the height.
Andrew, why do you think you've done plenty of podcasts this year? Why do you think this Granny Flat podcast went so big? Look at, we've got 166 questions. Like, we're not going to be able to answer all of them.
It's simple. People want to find a way to make more money from what they've got. And there's a lot of unused land. And what is becoming more and more of a problem every day is people have their parents that are getting older and they can't afford to put them in homes. And culturally, especially in the bigger centres and Auckland especially, there's a lot of cultures that people want to keep their parents close.
Or their kids as well. Maybe a brother and sister. Someone's going through a tough thing, a relationship breakdown there. It's just a fact of life. Sometimes it's actually nice to be able to have a family member there.
And also there's a lot of married couples or civil union couples that you have a spat. You can't afford 2 houses. You can live on the same bit of land. Put the husband in the granny flat.
It's tough. We're not relationship coaches, but there are all sorts of people that have sleep divorce.
My mother or my ex-mother-in-law living next to me. Like,
A lot
it's
of people
crazy
don't have the
shit.
choice. Financially speaking, two households.
I'd rather go broke.
I'd love it. It'd be great, those. Think of that for the extra babysitting on tap. It's fantastic. Feature.
So we said, and quite legitimately, we said that Dave Whitburn has flipped more. He's certainly made more granny flats or minor dwellings.
Flats.
Yeah, but the minor
That's
dwellings.
true.
Okay, probably more than anyone in New Zealand. So
Yes.
Gordon Cook says snakes like this are the main problem. 10-year bright line test would slow speculation by the greedy.
Sure, that's unfortunate there, only because I think that he's referring to the capitalist construct that you're able to have private wealth, and that's a concern for him. I actually don't disagree, which may be a surprise to you both, that a 10-year bright line test is bad. I think it could actually be good because it encourages long-term property ownership, responsible asset management, and to have a decent tax treatment for those that are trying to alleviate the burden from the kaimora and the various community housing providers. I think that's a good thing. So I'm not averse to having a 10-year bright line test, and that otherwise your property can be on a revenue account. So that's my personal position on this. The snake's comment's a little bit tough and emotion loaded.
Depends what kind of snake it is. Like king cobra, you're the king.
There are some nice snakes there that the kids eat from the dairies, so those ones are actually quite sweet. So I guess maybe
I'd rather be a king cobra than a snake from the dairy. Anyhow, okay.
Well, but the thing is, it's about being a capitalist with a social conscience, and you can do both. You can exist. You can be an ethical landlord and help vulnerable people by being an accommodation service provider.
Now, Andrew, we talk a lot to the economic guys from the BNZ, ASB. We've got them on all the time talking about it. There are a number of negative Nancy's there saying, for example, Jamie One says it's dead. Recovery. I've got a bridge to sell you after I check with the iwi. But where's your headspace? You interview more economists than anyone else, probably.
Yeah, well, a lot of our economy is small business owners, and those small business owners are reluctant to hire people at the moment to spend money on things they don't need to spend money on. They'll be feeling this 5-year pain that has caught up on them. Getting a subsidy through COVID was one thing that ran out, and now what has happened is the velocity of money has just killed the fun part of the economy. When people are spending money quickly, it goes around and everybody gets a little taste of it. The government makes more money from GST. What you're seeing now from the government's budget is they're getting less than they thought they were going to get, which means money's going slower and people are earning less. And it becomes like this self-fulfilling situation where because your neighbors aren't spending money with you, you don't spend money with them.
Yeah.
It's very hard to break out of that confidence cycle.
It's the fear, right? Fear is now higher than greed in the economy. So with people being a bit scared, they're more likely to have conservative investments like term deposits and bonds. It's in there in the buyer behavior. They're not out there in general going out and buying big overseas trips and spending it up large on their own houses.
Okay, so another question regarding the recovery from Jay Reevy says it's genuinely not recovering. And that's coming from someone who wanted to. Nelson, for example, many houses are over 10% under CV and have listed for 6 months. Now, I've got to play my cards here. As being a former journalist, I don't like this I like actual facts. So that's wild speculation as far as I'm concerned. That said, there is a feeling out there, isn't there?
Yes, but it's patchy because the New Zealand property market is a big, broad base there. There is areas that are underperforming and really struggling. There are areas that are going extremely well. Just in one particular area, we can't just isolate that out as well. There are some that I'm aware of in Nelson that have had a 4-week successful marketing campaign and are really happy with their price. However, I want to acknowledge Jay Reevy's experience that they've had over 6 months in the market that aren't getting the offers, and it's pretty brutal out there.
And it's really, really dangerous to use averages. And 10% from when?
Oh, I agree with you.
Is it from January this year? Is it from
November
January
2020?
Yeah, like the thing is if you just take Nelson as an example, the suburbs of Nelson are all very different.
Look, it's quite clear that we've got a number of people on both sides of the political spectrum asking questions. So here's one. Homes are for families, not for profit. Thoughts? You're a property investor?
Yes, I am, and I'm a capitalist with a social conscience. That's the one privilege that property investment has. Housing is a fundamental human need in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Everybody needs a roof over their head. And for my political worldview, I believe that everybody deserves the warm, healthy, dry home in New Zealand. And if we as society have failed them, we need to help them and look after our most vulnerable. So that's where I think it comes in. It's just that it would tie up so much of the government's capital and resources if we were to do that, that we actually need the private sector to do it. So property investors are actually patriots. Property investors are providing a wonderful and critical service that we really, really need.
Mix Up Working says, I want to challenge some of these questions with what we do. We're running, everyone's got a broad sense of opinion. Anyone who takes a bank economist seriously is an idiot. They are salesmen dressed up as objective thinkers.
I'll take the first cut at that. That's pretty tough. I know a number of these bank economists, and these are hardworking people, hardworking women and men that really know their stuff. Yes, they are employed by banks, and yes, they're going to be finding it a little bit tough to not toe the party line. That could cause them some employment issues. However, they are allowed to express an opinion for this, and many of them have. And I don't think that it's fair to say that they're salesmen or imply that they're snake oil salespeople. It's tough. What economist is right all the time? None of them. They're trying to do some crystal ball gazing and projections. We saw that at the end of last year when they're predicting their 5 to 9% capital growth rates over the next 6 months and 12 months, but they're unable to get that one right.
Jay Reevy has written again. He says, I beg you, please lose the cringe calls to action. It makes me not even want to tune in. It's not professional and it hurts your content, in my opinion. My response to that is, if you're not subscribing to this channel, then your competitors are. Hit that subscribe button. Because if you're not, your competitor is too.
Yeah.
Honestly, why would you whinge about things like that? Like, you're watching, okay? You're watching. And subscribe.
I have a problem with that, with where the ads go. Sometimes 2/3 of the way through, there's a 1 minute ad with like 3 minutes to go. That one's a bit more brutal.
Another one says, and this interviewer on this podcast, he's a try-hard. Well, envy leaves a fingerprint, mate. All right, more granny flat questions. Can you put multiple granny flats, aka 5, on a 400 square meter section?
No.
Why?
Because the rules don't allow that. Remembering that we still have planning legislation, which is the Resource Management Act. We're having to submit a project information memorandum to council. Council are able to check and screen that. So in that, we're going to have site coverage. How much of the site can we cover in impervious surface area? Building coverage. How much of the actual total site area can be covered in buildings? So they're different percentages because of the concrete that can be used in the wider site coverage. And the simple reality is you're not going to be able to fit that in. It's too tight, too densely arranged.
So a major problem in Auckland is the flooding as well. You just have to have somewhere for the water to go when it rains. And the more houses we build and the more that we cover up the ground, the more we need to think about where does the water go when it rains.
A garage is not built to the same standard as a house, so therefore it wouldn't be considered safe enough for someone to sleep in, and that's before you need to consider things like insulation. Still needs to be built to New Zealand build casting standards. This is Cheryl Carr saying, even though there are so many garages here in New Zealand that seem to have people living in them.
Sure. So this isn't about garages. This is about habitable accommodation. I mean,
But a garage is habitable. That's what she's saying.
No, it's not habitable, because to be habitable, we're going to have to comply with the Residential Tenancies Act, which then refers to the Healthy Homes regulations.
Yeah.
And are we providing potable water? Are we providing electricity?
There's a lot of families that have people living in garages, right? And that's
Acknowledge that.
That's a personal decision or a situation. There's no rent changing hands usually in that situation. And so that there's no landlord-tenant agreement in place. It's a family's decisions to have 10 people in a property that only should be having 5. And then people living in the garage, it, generally speaking, is not a landlord situation.
That was my computer going.
There's a new computer.
There's a new computer coming on the way.
I'm going to explain what the Richard Hadley picture is doing behind here very shortly as well. So stick around if you're a bit of a cricket fan. I know you are, David. But let's stay. No. I interrupt. Remember, I don't. I interrupt too much. The reason why you interrupt is if he's got something good to say, I let him flow. But if he's going to go on talking about cricket while we're talking about granny flats, I've got to keep him on topic. What services and the fact? What?
So tough.
Well, I'm the boss. What about services and the fact that some are at maximum? What about car parking? That's a fair point. Like, I've lived in London. I'm sure you guys have spent a lot of time in London. You can't get a car park on the side of the road for ages, and we're starting to see that. And
Yeah, I use public transport in London.
yeah, okay, but we don't in Auckland. So we're talking about cars all over the streets.
Yep, there are some challenges with this in the rules. These rules aren't anything to do with car parking. What's happened is in Auckland, if this person is for Auckland, the unitary plan has really helped councils to empower their own subset of planning rules, and the transportation chapters are saying, hey, let's not worry about this too much. Let's take out the car parks. So yes, I'm well aware that many streets...
His name's Grant Butcher. He actually says another thing here. Will this impact road congestion? It probably will. If you're putting granny flats on the back of places, more people in streets.
It's just that in some cases, though, we're getting people out of garages into granny flats. We're getting people out of living in couches. There to do it. Is this actually going to increase the population growth by itself?
Are we not more likely to be making a cash register on the back of our properties?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We are going to do that as well. And potentially that's going to increase the supply of dwellings, which may put some pressures on the rents and going up as well. So we have to realise it's part of a market. And it's just that it's a market that gets meddled with because it's also got people that are living in places. That's their home as well. That's why property is such a good investment, because everybody needs a home. Not everybody needs a term deposit. Not everybody needs a share. Not everybody needs a bit of gold. But everybody needs a home. That's why property investment is so good.
Can you build a granny flat without pre-existing dwelling? This is from Edward Ponder. If you're off the grid, do you still need a consent?
If you're off the grid, do you need a consent? Well, this whole thing is about the Building Act 2004, and in Schedule 1, this gives exemptions to items that you need a building consent for. So what's happening is the exemption for 30 square metres or less is now going to change to 70 square metres. So as long as he is complying with the building code and is submitting the PIN to the territorial authority or council that it's involved with, he's able to do that.
If you're that far off the grid that no one's coming to inspect, I think
I think the council's got better things to do.
Yeah, technically you meant to apply, but I am well aware that there are plenty of places that are very remote that have not got the consents. It's just not the correct approach. You are meant to apply for a consent. But
Okay, so that leads to the next question from Nightingale STV. How much does a building consent cost?
Sure, about $4,500 would be it cost. It's very variable across the country. Some of them are under $2,000 because we've got so many councils or territorial authorities across New Zealand, whereas some of them go as high as $6,500. So we've got a pretty big swing of things, and potentially what they may well be referring to as well. Nightingale STV might be wondering about, how much is the development contribution? Well, different policies yet again.
Okay, so got another question. Would a steel container be approved? They've got insulation.
they don't have insulation. It would have to be retrofitted, like put in, which I've done before.
Yeah,
not for living though, for industrial chemical purposes.
Yeah, business. And the use and storage, they don't meet the building code, so they're unlikely to be signed off. They'd need quite a bit of modification to do it. There are people that have taken containers and modified them. We've seen them on grand designs, and they can be fantastic, but there's actually quite a lot of modification that's required to meet the building code. It's not necessarily cost effective like everyone thinks.
What you're going to see now more is the builders and development companies are going to come out with like template products.
Yeah.
And those template products, they'll be able to buy things in bulk and save on design costs and be able to push the price down. We do have a contending problem with much older aging population, right? And there's how many people pay tax to pay for everyone.
Yeah.
Is getting smaller.
We need a mature chat on the retirement age. I think.
Hang on. Look, Bill English's government did do that, but he put it out 20 years to change the year for retirement.
Too much for retirement, right? Year for retirement needs to go up. Means testing needs to come in. And if there's a wealth tax, I'm encouraging of a wealth tax. Just spend the money more, better. Like what's happening is the government.
It's shocking. Wealth tax is terrible there. That's tall poppy syndrome. That's the envy tax.
Well, you look at the way
And to be told government expenditure instead.
it's a tax on net assets.
Like if you've got
Totally fine.
$400 million,
if
you
the-
can pay a bit more.
But what if you've got $2 million, which is what the Green Party policy
Yeah, well,
was? What if you're an old lady that's your husband's died and now you can't pay your wealth
That's
tax?
that's bullshit. You're like, there's no chance in hell Labour would agree to that, because Labour's got to be as close to centre as possible to win the election in the first place.
Yeah,
because the government that wins the election, the party that wins the election, is always the one closest to centre. Hence the reason that Winston has always been there or thereabouts, because he sits in the centre benches.
And he's also a consummate professional. He's an outstanding politician.
Did you see what he said about Chris Hipkins
No.
and sausages?
Does he likes Chris Hipkins sausage?
It's a bit like that. You know, we've gone so off the topic, and there was a question about cricket. This is where you can switch off and go to OPS Partners, because we're going to talk cricket now. Because there was a question about cricket, and there a small number of people wanted to talk cricket because of what we talked about with Sir Richard Hadley last week. So there we go. Tell the story. This is Dave's picture of Hadley's 400th Test wicket against Sanjay Manjrekar.
Oh, it's just perfection. Sir Richard Hadley's a bit of an idol to me. He's a great man.
I'm not stop you there and interrupt you and annoy that person. That was a guy who wasn't mediocre, right?
He was not mediocre.
That's
This is
exactly the point.
Pursuit of excellence. He's a
Pursuit of excellence, and he
hero.
became an icon. This is
How many times there when he got his 9 for
You guys put it
in
in
breakfast? What? What's up there?
You guys
Seriously, this is
go on. Yeah, we've got no viewers now, but that's fine. We're not talking.
what Andrew's missing out is this is great. This guy's way
Mediocre, Andrew.
he's mediocre
Andrew's
and doesn't
mediocre.
actually respect this great talent, this treasure that's cricket.
There was someone who asked, "What is your favourite? Was it World 11 of all time?"
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to give you your opportunity, because David said he wouldn't do the podcast unless we gave
Gave me
opportunity
opportunity to- I just wanted
to World 11.
I wanted to respect the question as well, because we've got
I don't think anyone cares, but we're going to do it anyhow. As the viewership goes.
We've got commenters on it. So we've got the Stanaway 11 and the Whitburn.
Yes, I did give you one. Yep. So you do your openers, and I'll do. Oh, you said you're going. Oh,
I'm done with it.
yeah. So
And it's just not welcome there. It's not passionate enough about cricket.
yeah. Okay.
A lot of property investors like cricket too, so that's why it's relevant comment.
So do your openers, and then say my openers and
My openers are Hobbs and Sutcliffe,
Yeah.
the English pre-World War II pair.
Okay, so I have an issue with people who have anyone pre-World War II, because in those times they always set attacking fields. Even if you're 400 for one, they would still have 3 slips, and so it was easier to score runs. I know they had uncovered pitches.
They're pretty
I know they had uncovered pitches, but
variable bounds,
yeah, but
extreme swing.
for me, they only played predominantly in England, so which is tough.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, but for
England,
me,
Australia.
my openers were Matthew Hayden, had to be, and who was the other one?
You had Gordon Greenwich in the West
Yeah,
Indies.
so for 2 reasons. Matthew Hayden proved himself in India in 2001 in that fantastic series where VVX Laxman won the series. And
What a test.
yeah, and he was the only batsman in that series who scored 219. He was the only batsman who really mastered the Indian pitches. He would get you 100 without loss after 20 overs. And if he goes out and you're 100 without loss after 20 overs, you're bringing in Bradman. So
He'd scored pretty quick.
right,
He'd
and
scored.
so would Gordon Greenwich. So my attitude was that Greenwich and Hayden set up your order, because I'm thinking about the team. So you're wanting Bradman to come in with the shine off the ball.
I've done mine based on statistics as well, and
Yeah, that's
just thinking
boring
about
way
the
of doing it.
picture as well. But I agree, they were untested on some of those Bunsen burner pitches in the subcontinent. I'm not sure I would have chosen a different team if I was playing on the subcontinent pitch.
The issue and the reason why the Australian team in the early 2000s was so good was because their openers took the game away from everyone. They scored fast, and at the end of the first session, if your openers have smashed the hell out of the opposition, you're setting your middle order up, or they come in the second innings. They come in the second innings and they smash it as well. So Matthew Hayden for me revolutionised the game, and the guy who did it before him was Gordon Greenwich. Okay, next one.
Yep.
Don Bradman.
We're agreed on
We're
that.
agreed on Bradman.
We averaged 99.9 there.
And my favourite Bradman story, and it was done in Wisden, was that they were on an uncovered pitch in 1937 in England, and he could see how bad it was. And I think he decided not to bat and he sent everyone else in. I think Australia got 7 down for about 30, and then he goes in and scores 270. Enough said.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
unbelievable.
As a legend of the game. Now, this is where I've got the little master, Sachin Tendulkar. He is coming in at number 4 for me. He's got the most test runs in the history of the game. I know that his average might not be quite as high as others, but I think
why?
he's fantastic.
But why?
Because he stayed on for probably 3 years too long, and he dropped his average. He made a sacrifice for doing that.
Yeah, so I have a real issue with him as well. Like, Tendulkar never makes my team because he didn't go out there and win matches. He was an accumulator of runs who scored lots of runs for sure. And people are going to say, oh, but he won this test and he won that test.
Yeah,
he played 200 tests. 200 tests.
But he was able to face Wazzy Markram and Waka Yunus and win.
Whoop-de-doo. Okay, he scored a century against those guys at age 17, but
Yeah.
for me, if you played 200 tests, you have to win tests. Greenwich, Hayden, old mate Bradman, they won tests. He only won a handful, but that's me. I'm not a Tendulkar fan.
Well, you've got Steve Waugh. No, not Steve Waugh. You got Steve Smith coming in at 4th.
Yeah, I do have Steve Smith coming in because Steve Smith is another one of these gritty players who comes in.
Sandpaper grit.
Very good. And actually, that's the reason why he is in the team for me. He averages about 56 in Test cricket. His career should have been over. He was pilloried, and he came back. And in 2019 or 2020, I can't remember the series, he scored double centuries non-stop against England in England to the point by the 5th test in the Oval, everyone had booed him for the first 4 tests and started clapping him. He won people over for his cricketing ability. He wins tests. He's so hard to get out. He's a modern day great. I can't look past him.
He's a fantastic.
And another reason why I love him so much is he got into the side as the replacement for Shane Warne. He was a leg spin bowler.
Yeah, so he came in at number 8 or 7 or 8.
He was a leg spin bowler who was awful as the next Shane Warne and has become definitely the greatest accumulator of runs for Australia in the last 60 years.
My concern's him on the subcontinent, but hey, that's all right. But a lot of people have a lot of problems on there. Coming in at 5 for me, the Sri Lankan master Kumar Sangakkara, who can also keep wicket as well. That's a pretty helpful thing.
But he is your wicket keeper, right?
I've got him as my wicket keeper.
Yeah, but he wasn't a wicket keeper in Test cricket that often.
He was.
He
did towards the end of his career. He gave up the gloves.
Sure.
Yes, but he kept in it.
But I'm pretty sure he batted at 3, which is the reason why
Don Bradman took that spot.
That's right.
And I've got Jack Cullis as well, who batted at 3. So Bradman being so great meant that I had to put in a few other, make some changes, because how formidable would it be to have Kumar Sangakkara coming in at number 5?
Yeah, and I think who have I got? I've got
Steve Waugh.
So my rationale to that is, like, at the end of the day, look at my top order. They've got 500 before Steve Waugh comes into bat, but there's a possibility that they all go out, and I need someone there who is then going to grit it out. And if you're going to have anyone to say bat for your life, I got Steve Waugh batting for my life ahead of
Rahul Dravid might be right up there as well for me.
And where did he bat?
At number 3.
That's right.
Because of the Bradford, and that it throws out the whole thing.
I would have Dravid ahead of Tendulkar. I love Dravid, the Waugh.
Dravid is the Waugh. He and Steve Waugh, I'd choose to bat for my life. Some people say Joe Root, but I think Joe Root's got a couple of technical flaws. Steve Waugh's great. Hard and nails there as well.
And he's my captain now.
Well, I've got Jacques Callis at number 6 because
he didn't bat 6, but yeah.
He's batted some tests at 6, but I appreciate that he batted a hell of a lot of tests at 3 or 4, and I'm dropping him down the order a bit. He was a phenomenal bowler. He averaged about 30.
Oh, yeah, he's absolute
great. Nearly 300 Test cricket wickets with the ball, as well as averaging over 55 with the bat.
Oh, amazing.
What a phenomenal talent.
Amazing player.
You've got Gary Sobers at 6.
He gets into every side.
He's a legend. Is he? And he can bowl spin or fast.
But he averages 58, can bowl spin or fast, and he's a left armour as well. So Gary Sobers and Don Bradman and Adam Gilchrist and Shane Warne, except for his team, they make every World 11. Gilchrist has to be a wicketkeeper. He revolutionised the game. Averages 47.
High strike rate, but strike rate's not everything when you got the bowling lineups that we've got.
Gilchrist is the greatest wicketkeeper.
So you've got Gilchrist at 7, whereas I've got Sir Gary Sobers at 7. So
he didn't bat 7. It's Gary Sobers. He averages 58 in Test cricket. He's got 26 Test centuries, I think. And you've got him at 7.
He batted at 6 a fair number of times too. It's
Sorry,
not too bad.
Sir Garfield, you're batting at 7.
He's got to be at, well, we've both got paddles. The great man, Sir Richard, at number 8. So we're united on that. Averaging 22, he was the record holder of the most test wickets for a number of years. What a phenomenon.
Now, I know there's going to be people say bias, but he averaged 22.29 tests, 431 test wickets. His strike rate was incredible. But more importantly, he got those wickets with a very average bowling attack. We're still talking cricket. We're still talking cricket. We're still talking. He got that average with comparatively average bowlers.
This is Mike Gatting's famous comment with the ill-fitted third 11, second 11.
So conceivably, you could block out Hadley at one end, and you could make runs at the other end. And one of the reasons why Warne and McGrath was so successful because they just put them on both at the same time. So there was always pressure. Although
Jason Gillespie and Brett Lee and co weren't the worst players either, to be fair.
Although there is a strong argument, and it's in Hadley's book, he says he got most of those wickets because of Chatfield. Because Chatfield was
a metronome. He's an absolutely beautiful bowler as well. He's put the bats under a lot of pressure as well. I think he's a phenomenon. You've got Warney at number 9, the great leg spinner.
He has to be in the team, yeah.
Do you need 2 spinners? We'll come to that though. I've got Malcolm Marshall coming at number 9, the West Indian great. He was fast as anything, a fantastic stroke rate, better than Sir Richard's stroke rate.
Average about 20.
Yeah, 20, 21.
He's I can't.
He's a really talented
He's legitimately quite good.
We have this little problem where there are so many fast bowlers with strike rates sort of 50 or less in terms of the balls for the wicket, and then the averaging in the very low 20s. It is a tough choice. I'll give him that. But Malcolm Marshall got the edge for me. So coming in at 10, I picked Dale Steyn, the South African genius. Super fast, super aggressive as well. And I think he's a phenomenal. His strike rate is phenomenal. 41 balls for every wicket in tests. That's pretty impressive. And if we're not on the subcontinent, I think he's got to be there.
And I had an argument somewhere with a South African person really recently about Dale Steyn, and it's hard to argue against him. It really is.
You've got Glenn McGrath instead.
Oh, that's how I argue against you. I just think that
Glenn McGrath.
Yeah, so I agree. I think Dale Steyn is amazing, but
I need to pull you up then, because then how many Australians have you got in your team? You've got Hayden, Bradman, Steve Smith, Steve Waugh, Gilchrist, Warne McGrath. 1, 2, 3.
So my argument to that,
7 Aussies in the team.
So my argument to that is that if we were to pick a World Rugby 15 for the last 100 years, it would be stacked with All Blacks, because the All Blacks have dominated World Rugby. It'd be stacked with All Blacks and South Africans. And Australia has dominated cricket for the last 100
British
years.
and Irish Lions players too. And well, I'm not sure. I've done that in my Rugby World 15, and I'm not sure that it's going to make it there.
Okay, but that's my
another day. Yes, well. So then we are united on the last one. Wutai Muralitharan. He's from Sri Lanka. He's the most successful bowler in terms of the number of wickets of all time. He's got a better average and better strike rate than Shane Warne.
Yeah, and hell of a nice guy. Everyone who's met him, just hell of a nice guy. I do have an issue that they changed the rules for him, so he could have a legal bowling action, but the stats don't lie. He was virtually unplayable.
He was virtually, and when we've got the ability to spin with Gary Sobers as well, do you need 3 spinners in your World 11?
Yes, you do, because you don't know what's going. It's a 5 test. It's a 5 day. You have no idea. Someone gets broke. The thing is, someone breaks down, so you need someone to carry the load.
I think this team would be really good. My team's a better team in New Zealand and England. And in the subcontinent, hey, maybe you need that extra spinner.
Yep.
Not necessarily, so it depends on where we're playing.
And, I've left out my favourite player of all time, which was Waqar Younis, by far my favourite player of all time. And
beautiful.
And I've interviewed Waqar Younis. I was quite obsessed with Waqar Younis. So if you're watching and think I'm against the subcontinent, my favourite player is Waqar Younis.
And Wazim Akram would be right up there for me. He's a regret that I missed him. We've missed so many greats of this game. We always lament doing that. But hopefully you like the Stanaway and Whitburn 11.
I don't think anyone cared, but at least we got Dave Whitburn on the podcast. That was Andrew Malcolm. He came in twice. I think he was a bit envious in the end.
Yeah. doesn't like cricket.
Envy's one of the 7 deadly sins. Dave Whitbourne, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, your competition has already hit subscribe on the fastest growing property and investment channel in New Zealand. This isn't a cricket show. They're getting the tips, the tricks, and the juicy insights before you've even finished your coffee. They're building, buying, banking profits while you're still sitting there thinking, should I click that button? Come on, be clever. Hit subscribe or don't, and enjoy watching everyone else get rich.